Netter, and welcome to Moving the Body, Connecting the Soul. How many of you saw the fire dancer on Saturday night? Yvonne, did you see it?
I did not.
Okay, so you did. So, incredible dancing. She was in this beautiful outfit. She worked with fire, and that's what I'm going to teach you today. Kidding. All right. That joke went out really well. So, I'm going to begin by asking you some questions. What does it mean to move the body and connect the soul? And how can that prevent and affect our levels of stress? What is our relationship to movement, to the body, to ourselves? And how do we claim the home as of our bodies in a safe and dynamic way? So I want to invite you in this hour that we have together to open parts of yourself that you may have not observed in decades and maybe never. And the part of you that knows without words, that is wise and conscious beyond your years and experience, the container of the wise within you, and your vehicle for the wisdom of your body. So, whenever I give talks or experiential sessions, I always work with 3 keys to learning. And I believe this is learning anything, whether it's personal growth, professional growth, you're 5 years old, or you're 105. The first key to learning is awareness. I also draw pictures, and I give points for people who can know what my pictures are about. Number 2, understanding. We're going to work with all these 3 elements today, and then finally to bring it all together, because without awareness and understanding, if we don't bring it out into action, we don't have a result. So this is my triangle of learning, A-U-A, and then everything that I talk about, everything that I present, I believe is contingent on 4 elements that I believe we need to bring back into our 21st century. The first is balance. The second is integration, and we're really going to work with this today. And this, I believe, is one of the reasons that we have so much dissonance in this 21st century, is that everything in our lives is segmented and fragmented, and I'm really going to address that today. The third is self-expression. When we look at our kiddos, how are they expressing today? You know, most people, all we use in our bodies is our thumbs, right? Or our ears, we're plugged in, or we're thumbing, we're texting. So we're going to really look at what is the component of self-expression, and how does that serve us? And then, fourth of all, connectedness. This whole sense that we are connected to ourselves and to everything in the universe. I remember several years ago, I gave a presentation called Creating Calm in the Midst of Chaos, and it was to a very, very large venue. There were probably hundreds of people in the room. And I began my talk by saying, I'm not going to be lecturing today, but I'm going to ask each one of you to participate in the experience. And at that point, about half of the people left the room. And after I regained my composure, I laughed, and I thought, oh my goodness, I realized what just happened. We have become so accustomed to using our left brain to process our lives that we have forgotten the significance of being present as participants and the creators of our experience. And that's what I'm going to hope to bring to you today, the understanding of how our bodies are our greatest friends and wise beings. For decades, and I'm actually for thousands and thousands of years, our minds have been the point of our focus. The body has been playing second fiddle since the onset of the Greeks and even the great yogis in India. How many of you have heard of the law of attraction? That the mind absolutely creates our reality. Let me just see. Everybody here's heard the law of attraction? And we know, right, that what we put in our mind can affect our physical reality. Well, today I'm going to present a different focus and ideology, and then I'm going to take it one step further. We're going to look at how does the body state affect our mind and our emotions, and how our awakened creativity connects and integrates our entire being and life together. So I'm going to ask you a question, because I love asking questions, and then we're going to find the answers together. So how many of you, now I forgot my question. How did I do that? Okay. How many of you know what our first language is? Doesn't matter if we were raised in Africa, we were raised in America, we're male, female. What's our first language? Sound? What else? What's our first language?
Touch. Music. Touch.
Touch.
Yeah.
Right? So as babies, how do we communicate?
With our mouth and our fingers.
Our bodies, right? So when we're babies, we can't really talk English. We can't work with our left brain. We're using our bodies to communicate. How many of you have ever heard someone speak and you knew that they were lying? Yeah? How did you know that? Body language, exactly. So what our innate understanding is that our bodies are vehicles for extraordinary communication. But because we have put so much emphasis on the left brain, we have totally forgotten this place of wisdom that is innate within us. And this vehicle, this home that we call our body, we spend no time except for dressing up or adorning, but we don't work on listening to it, that innate sense. So I'm going to give you a couple of clues about how this wisdom has been neglected over the years. Our language, there are idioms in our language, however, that show us that there is an understanding of the body and the body's wisdom. So let's just look at a couple of them. What are some body idioms that we say? If you didn't speak English, you would have absolutely no idea what these means. Some body idioms. I'll start with one. I have butterflies in my stomach. What does that mean? Can you imagine if somebody from China came and said, I have butterflies in my stomach, and they'd look at you like, where are they? I have butterflies in my stomach. What else?
My heart's in my throat.
My heart's in my throat. Perfect. We all know what this means. They're all related to the body, but we have not used this. What else? I trusted my gut, right? I have 2 left feet. We all know how to say that. One more. She wears her heart, what is it?
Honestly.
Right. Exactly. So these are body idioms that show us that there is an understanding that our bodies can communicate. Now, I'm going to make a strong statement and then come back to the body. I believe that many of the maladies is based, in our society, is based as fragmentation and segmentation. The great masters of all traditions would say that it is our belief in separation that causes all of our dysfunction and pain. So just let that thought sort of settle today, and we're going to use that as a platform for the rest of the time. How many of you have included dance as part of your life? Great. Most of the time, we are told that after the age of about 15, if we haven't danced, we're not going to. And maybe we'll do a little bit of ballroom, maybe we'll do a little bit of rock and roll dancing, but other than that, if you don't have the right body, if you don't have the right training, dance is not part of our lives. And yet, if we look at indigenous societies, all of the arts were incorporated in society as part of life. And they were able to do self-expression and connection with that. Also, the arts were integrated in their society, and because of that, there was great balance. If we look at, especially the Aborigines, what they would do in order to communicate a balance and a sense of when things weren't going well, they would actually dance out wars so that they didn't have to actualize them in life. And so we need vehicles that allow us to express ourselves in a positive way so that we don't have to act it out. Just imagine if we all had a safe vehicle for expressing who we are, how much more our lives would be fluid, how much more self-responsible would be, and how much more we wouldn't have to act it out in dysfunctional ways. And I'm talking at the microscopic level as well as in the world. So one of the things that I want to introduce today, I talked about earlier, that we all know that the mind affects the body. How many of you have heard about dance therapy? Okay. So I'll just tell you a little bit about dance therapy and how it started. It started after World War II. There was a gentleman in Washington who, when the war veterans came back from World War II, there was no such thing yet as PTSD, as post-traumatic stress disorder. However, the director of the hospital in Washington noticed that the veterans of World War II were not responsive to any of the therapy that was available. And we might think in 1945, 46, that it was pretty elementary. But there was meds, and there was some talk therapy. And he had a friend, Marion Chase, who happened to be a dancer. And he thought, well, you know, they're not communicating, they're not responding to any of the therapy. Maybe I'll just have her come in and do something with them. And what happened is that Marion Chase became the grandmother of dance therapy. And she began to move with them and socialize them, and they began to respond. So what dance therapy was about was that not only does the mind affect the body, but dance therapy's ideology and science was based that the body also can affect the mind and the emotional states. So if we can shift our physical reality, we begin to change our thoughts, our beliefs, and our feelings. And then we're going to talk about how that connects to the soul. So my background is in dance, and I also have a master's in both dance and dance therapy. And when I was doing my internship, I was living in the Bay Area, and I did my internship at Highland Hospital in the acute psychiatric ward. So my patients were diagnosed as catatonic, as acute schizophrenia, and many of them were in a very, very contracted state and absolutely non-communicative. So what I would do is I would come in and we would put on music, it was at that time, and then we would get people to move and dance. So I'm going to ask you to come out of your chair and just stand up for a moment. I'm going to demonstrate what we did. I'm just going to have you stand. And I want you to imagine you're in my group and you all are in a very want you to imagine a certain diagnosis. I'm going to take one up here as well. And I want you to imagine that you're very depressed, you're completely introverted, and I'm going to do the same thing. So go ahead and take a shape. That's all you need to do, wherever you are. Just take a shape, and I want you to just notice how, if you're breathing or you're not breathing, what your shape is doing. You can close your eyes tight, whatever it is. Just go ahead and take that shape and that stance. Now, at that time, I came in and I put on this great music, and I'm just going to go ahead and make it up right now. And I put on the Beatles, Here Comes the Sun, da-da-da-da, very upbeat, very joyous. And I'm going to tell you that I want you to go ahead and I want you to stretch your arms up. And remember, you're in the state, this is the first time meeting me, and you're going to reach your hands and your arms, and you're going to reach up to the very tip of the sky, and you're going to see if you can grab a star, and you're going to just spread it all over the room while you're barely making it. Okay, so just stay in your state, because remember, you're still completely committed to being depressed or introverted or completely in your own world. We won't even diagnose it. We won't give it a diagnosis. Now, you've been working with me for a year. And here comes the sun, da-da-da-dum. Here comes the sun. And I want you to now reach up and go ahead and reach up and completely extend your arms. And I want you to reach up for the most exquisite star. And then I want you to spread it all over the room and all over the world. And then go ahead and sit down. So that is an exaggeration. But what are some of the experiences you had, first of all, in your state? I was completely crouched down. I was not looking at you. And what did you notice?
You're tight when you're...
Completely tight, so totally connected in, right? I couldn't breathe. I was so contracted that my chest cavity was completely pulled in. And you will notice, people, after you leave today, I want you to really open your eyes and start looking at people and start looking at their posture. You know, notice what happens when your shoulders are back. What happens when you're reaching up? It's like an animal, right? When they lie on their back. How many of you have animals where they lie on their back? My kitty cat sometimes lies on her back and she's like this, and completely open and vulnerable. But if you're like this, what happens? You're closed. What else did you notice? How did that shape affect your emotions? Shut down. Exactly. So when you finally did this, and of course we're making this up, right? But after a year you might be able to reach up that way. But if you've noticed some people, there are actually people when you say for them to reach, they can only go this far, and I remember that. We would say, reach up, because we were looking to open up their heart, open up their sense of breath. And when you're doing that, you have to be open. When you're doing that, you're not. And yet, when I even work with clients today, when I ask them to reach as high as they can, this is as far as they'll go. So what happened when you went here and opened up that way? What did you feel?
free and vulnerable.
Free, but vulnerable. How extraordinary. Just think, if we were able to, as a people, whether it's one at a time or even with children, allow them to be open, vulnerable, and free, what kind of a society would we have? So at that time, a lot of dance therapy, up to the present time, was about socialization. It was about impacting the body so that the mind and the emotions could change. Now, my work in the last 35 years has been to take this concept of the mind and the body and take it a step further. So because we are a society that is so limited in language of movement, and yet I believe that dance is very important. We know that exercise, we know that moving the body, that walking, that working out is so important. We've known now in research that it staves off Alzheimer's. We know that it oxygenates the blood. We know that it is so important for both our mental and our physical health, and for becoming an ageless, for truly staving off the aging process. And we're not going to talk today about epigenetics and DNA, but all of that actually is mentioned in my book. So what I do want to talk about is that movement is so important for all of those reasons in terms of being healthy, being vibrant, staving off Alzheimer's, and keeping the mind very ageless. However, what I believe exercise does not give us, that movement for the mind does, is that it's based in dance. And what does that mean? Well, it's based in that level of art and expressiveness. But how do we get past the whole idea that we all have left feet, two left feet, or I don't have the right body to dance, or I can't do ballet? Are you kidding? My knees, my ankles. So I have designed a program that anyone can do, whether they are completely mobile or not, that they can do in a safe way. And that way is to use the 5 principles of choreography, which is time, space, energy, and motion. And we're going to do a little bit of it today. And that becomes your basis. And then we add other flows and components that anyone can do. So you begin to have a structure to allow your body to be a vehicle for communication. Then there's one other element that I believe is the most important. Not only do we use dance and exercise in an easy and safe way, but we use intention or a theme to be able to then create a purpose or a goal. So the 3 elements are what? 1, you learn the vocabulary of moving. We make the body safe, and I will talk about that. And then we have a goal or an intention. So in my book, Movement for the Mind, there are 4 application chapters. Movement as stress management, which we're going to do today. Movement as creativity, which I have worked with Fortune 500 companies and pioneered this work at Stanford University in the MBA program. It's one of the most popular courses, personal creativity in business, and we always worked with, I brought movement for the mind into every single one of those classes. It was the most popular class in the MBA program at Stanford. Movement as physical healing, and I'm going to give you a story about someone that used this work to heal fibromyalgia, worked with cancer survivors, worked with all kinds of different maladies, and then also movement as psychological healing. So the most unique part of this movement work is to work with intention. And what it unfolds, and I'm going to give you an experience of it today, is that when you are able to move the body and let go of the intellectual mind, everything that you need in terms of insight, those aha moments, is given to you because you allow the mind to be quiet without forcing it. You allow the body to engage you in a joyous and playful way, and then everything, including if pain needs to be expressed or released, happens, and then you find your joy. So let me give you an example. I was talking, my work was mostly pioneered in the Bay Area, and I was pretty well known there. I had a large platform for the work, and there were major articles in newspapers, and the Veterans Hospital had heard about my work with sexual assault victims, with PTSD, and with incest survivors. And one of the most important saw The Blind Side, that movie. It's an extraordinary movie. What we know is when we raise children in unsafe environments, with drugs, with shootings, with gangs, we know that first of all, their rate of survival is very minimal, but also their ability to be citizens and live their dreams is also minimized tremendously. And it's the same thing. We don't think we know about unsafe environments out there, but what about when we have unsafe environments here? So we have not put any attention on the safety of our own bodies. And I'm sure that all of you know both women and men that have been assaulted sexually or who've been abused as children physically. So one of the most important components, and we're going to work on that today, I'm actually going to take you through this experience today, is to make the body safe. And that is one of the key components to movement for the mind. We start off with a base of awareness. Remember when I said, first part in learning is awareness. So we start with an inventory that you can do at home. There's a CD so that anyone can do this. And then you begin to explore the body as a vehicle, as a non-traditional dancer, and then you work with an intention. So there was a woman who had heard about my work, and she was suffering from fibromyalgia. How many of you have heard about fibromyalgia? It's still a mystery. At least physicians now characterize it as an actual diagnosis, but before that, they said, well, this is psychosomatic. And what does psychosomatic mean? It means that what you believe, what you feel, gets somatized in the body, which is so true for all of us. It just means that we're very in touch with our feelings, and it's expressed in the body. So this woman happened to be the wife of a physician. And she had gone to all the specialists. She had been on medications, and nothing had stopped her pain. And she was in pain for a good 10, 15 years nonstop. Nothing stopped her pain. So she came in, and I always do the same thing with everyone. We start with an intention. Her intention was, I'd like to look at how can I get over my fibromyalgia. So I asked her a few questions, and then I put on music, and I guided her, and I really believe we all have this sense of intuition. We all have this gut that knows. And so I thought, well, all she's ever experienced is pain. Let me give her a different experience. So I used words like joy and fun and play and everything that was the opposite. I really believe there's a reason we have light and darkness. And if we just are able to use those paradoxes, those opposites together, those extremes, we will find our balance. So I just gave her the opposite experience. So we spent about an hour together. At the end of all sessions, there's a debriefing. So I asked her what was her experience, and she said, feel fabulous, I have no pain, I'll see you next week. So during the week, she telephoned me. She said, Françoise, I have been pain-free since our session. I will not need to keep my appointment, but please keep me on your mailing list, and if you have any workshops, I'm there. I'm telling everybody about you. Now, the sad thing is, I was not very good about emails back then, and I lost her contact information, and I never found out if her pain came back or if that was a lasting experience for her. So how do these things happen? How do people have spontaneous healings? Anybody?
Just that they are receptive to it, or receptive to something that they haven't been before?
Exactly. Part of what we have relied on, all of us, is the sense that our wisdom, our expertise lies out there. Whether it's a physician, or it's a teacher, or it's a professor, and what we need to come back to is that if we could just connect the dots inside of us, there is nothing that cannot be healed. The other really important factor is, I really do believe this today, if we can just get in touch with our joy, We know that everything we engage in is for what? Is for pleasure, for happiness. We're not that different than the yogis. We have absolutely the same goals. We all want to be happy. But unfortunately, we have become so accustomed to not only going external to ourselves for that joy, for that happiness, but we look at events, we look at situations that are terribly temporary. So, what she was able to engage in was her joy. And that may have been a missing component in her life for 10 to 15 years. We're hearing sounds. So, there is one more thing I'm going to share with you, and then we're actually going to engage in the beginning part of the session so you can have an experience of that. In the book, Movement for the Mind, there's a section on psychological healing that I think is very, very powerful. I've worked with thousands of incest survivors, and one of the most important aspects is to make the body safe. But there's another component as well. For most of us, we come into this lifetime and we have these experiences, and a lot of them aren't so much fun, right? Everybody can attest to some trauma in their past. And what we tend to do in our society is we think that if we just stuff it under the table, right, we won't have to deal with it. And if something's been traumatic from the past, if we ignore it, then it's gone. But what I have found in my research is that some of it absolutely needs to be expressed. So what we do in Movement for the Mind in a session is we give, whether it's stress or it's abuse or it's something we don't even know about, we give it the stage of our bodies to express. And it's just like an infant or a child having a tantrum. What happens when that child has a tantrum? If you let them just do it, it's done. So in a safe environment, you get the ability to have self-expression. Even the shadow can be expressed. And once the shadow is expressed, we can replace that pain with a new belief and with a sense of what our friend here said, freedom and vulnerability. So we don't have to protect that anymore because we have that sense of freedom. It's out of our bodies. I'm going to teach you a very simple technique today to do. We will have time, I promise. So, one of the studies that I worked with and that's cited in the book is a research from a psychiatrist I was living in the Bay Area, and he happened to be in Colorado Springs. And he had done a lot of research on brain chemistry and PTSD. And what he found is that we all primarily have two brain states that we live in. From about the age of 1 to 10, I'm going to be very simplified. This is brain chemistry 101. So we tend to, from the age until about the age of 10, we tend to be in the alpha brainwave state. And the alpha brainwave state is a slow state. We might differentiate it by saying it's mostly from the right brain, and it is in the frontal lobe, it's slow, it's creative, it's that sense of undifferentiation, it's more going with your gut. And about the age of 10 and on, we spend most of our time in beta brainwave state, which is the left brain, intellectual, logical state of mind. What Dr. Stockdale found is that in any form of PTSD, and now we're using it wide range, whether you had trauma as a child, whether you had trauma as an adult, most therapy, including meds, including talk therapy, worked just on the beta brainwaves. They worked on the logical mind. And what research has found is that trauma, from minor to major, is stored through the alpha brainwave. So unless you use technologies, methodologies that stimulate the alpha brainwave, you're not going to get any result. And what are some things that stimulate alpha brainwaves? Definitely movement, art, anything that's nonverbal, anything that connects oneself to that level of knowing within. Why has meditation and yoga become so big in the society? Because we know in that quiet place within us is all our knowledge. But we do not have, I believe, enough methodologies that allow us to integrate it in everyday life. And I believe movement for the mind is one of those. Remember I talked about integration. We do have things in our society that allow us to take care of our minds, right? We go to school, we come to a lecture, we read. We have things that take care of our body. We exercise, we walk. We have things that take care of our spirit. We go to church, we go to temple, we meditate, we do yoga. And then we have some things that work with our emotions. We go into therapy. But where can we bring it all together as an integrated being? And that's what I want to introduce you to finally today. So I'm going to tell you one more story, and then we're going to put on some music, and we're just going to do the beginning part of this so you get an experience.
I have just a question. So you're saying even trauma after age 10 is still stored in the alpha state?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's nonverbal. That's when you get the flashbacks. So you have to work with something that allows you to, first of all, release that and then change it. Especially what happens with trauma, and as how many of you have heard of multiple personalities? I've had the fortune of actually working with several clients who have multiple personalities. We know what happens is when there's extreme trauma, the body's not safe. So they disassociate out. And especially with sexual assault, that happens. And it's interesting because today's talk is moving the body, connecting the soul. When I myself am an incest survivor, and even though I became a dancer, I was never grounded in this body. It was not safe. And when I was in 12-step groups, one of the things that I noticed in incest survivors' talk, in their speech, was I felt like my soul was murdered. That's very strong language. It's because this body was no longer safe. So it becomes very important to have appropriate boundaries and refine that place of safety within. And I'm going to teach you something again, I promise. I know I keep threatening that I'm going to give you an experience, but I promise I will. In time, I'm going to do it in 10, 15 minutes. And then you'll have resources to be able to do this on your own and to share it with others. So I'm just going to give you an example of working psychologically with this movement. So the first thing we do is we do make the body safe, and then we give the body a vehicle for expression, and then we work with healing the trauma and expressing it, and then finding a new reality that can take over our old. And one of the things that I have noticed in working with corporate executives and working with children and working with inmates and working with assault victims is that when you can move it here, we know this with the law of attraction, the more senses we use to believe a new reality, the more it becomes ours, right? So once you move it here, because this is still the place that we all move in the body, right? We move in the world in our bodies. When you can experience it within the walls of your own being, within your own body, it's yours. It's not, it doesn't just stay here. How many of you have visualized and visualized and visualized, but it still doesn't happen for you? But when you can feel it and move it, it's yours. It's your reality, and that is what is extraordinary. One more thing, and then a story, and then we're going to have the experience. I was speaking to someone today at INATS, or actually a couple of days ago at INATS, and he was saying to me, you know, Françoise, you really need a video of this. This is not going to work without a video. And I said, well, you know, I do have a video of the work, but what makes this work unique is that it's not about the audience and the participant. You are the participant and the audience. This is not for someone else's entertainment. It's for your own evolution. So the movement and the dance becomes a very inward process. When we do it in large groups, I always start with the eyes closed, and the only time the eyes come open is just to have physical safety in the movement in the room. And I got it all. So it is not about others seeing you, and this is important. It is about you being seen, about finally seeing yourself, finally giving yourself that stage for expression, for joy, and for inner peace, in a way that you can take in every aspect of your life. So many of the exercises we do in life, we don't take with us. That this form of movement is for you to take and make your daily life, to practically use it in your life, to make your life better. So that your home, your body, is a place of safety, of wisdom, of creative expression, and connectedness. Do you have any questions right now? And then I think we're going to move I'm going to give you an experience of the first part and then tell you how the rest of it can happen. But does anyone have any questions right now? Okay, we'll talk afterwards. I want to give you 2 more tools before we begin about a 10-minute beginning process of this. Most sessions are anywhere from half an hour to an hour, but I'm going to give you at least 10 minutes to begin this process. First thing in any session is to look at our VOJ. What's the VOJ? VOJ is the voice of judgment. It's that part of us that criticizes. Well, I'm not young enough. I'm too old. I'm not fit enough. I don't have the right body. I don't have the right mind. I don't have enough money. And on and on. And we all have this wonderful, alive VOJ. Doesn't matter how much work we've done on ourselves in this new age time. And we're going to, because the mind abhors a vacuum, we are going to replace it with the VOI. Now, what is the VOI? I'm going to tell you the real name of it, but I'm going to let you name it. Well, if the VOJ is the voice of judgment, what could the VOI be?
Voice of inspiration.
Perfect. Voice of inspiration.
Intuition.
Voice of intuition. Voice of?
Intention.
Voice of intention. Fantastic. Voice of imagination. It actually stands for, and this is borrowed from the MBA program at Stanford University. Interesting enough, there was actually a program at Stanford on creativity on 60 Minutes last night. I thought, really? There it was. I've done so much of my work there for 10 years, and there it was last night. Most of you were here, so you weren't there, but I happened to catch the last part of it. And he's this innovative man who Steve Jobs, before he died, found him all this money. I thought I'd called him last night. I go, okay, you know somebody who can invest in $3 million in my company too? So the VOI stands for the voice of objective intelligence. But you can call it anything you want. Now, when I work with, whether it's one person or I work in a room full of hundreds or thousands, I always have people take off their shoes. You don't have to do that today. And I'm not going to have you moving all over the room. We're going to stay right where you are. But what's great to do is today I am going to ask you for as long as we work together is for you to leave your VOJ under the table. And when you leave, if you're really attached to the VOJ, you can take it with you. And if not, I want you to just leave it here. And I'm sure that the people in this building will allow it to go to the center of your and replace it with your VOI and name it anything you want. Voice of intuition, voice of inspiration, voice of intention, voice of objective intelligence. All right, so I want you to go ahead and close your eyes, and I'm going to take you through an inventory. And I use movement, I use music as environment. We all know that our environment can support us sometimes when everything's going our way, and most of the time our environment doesn't. So, actually, I'm going to have you change. I'm going to have you stand up for a moment and just walk. And then I'm going to have you come back and sit down. And just walk just right where you are, just a little bit, just get in your body and just notice. And just notice if you only walk in one direction. Notice if you could walk forward, backwards, sideways, and turning. Notice if you're breathing. Notice what your arms are doing. And in a regular session, I would have everyone lie down on the floor and close their eyes. But in this particular setting, let's just have you go back. If you want to lie down on the floor and close your eyes, bring your knees up, or just sit in your chair. However is comfortable for you. And wherever you are, I want you to go ahead and close your eyes. If you are standing, though, just sit down, because this is important to be supported. So sit down or lie down. And we're just going to work with an inventory with the breath. So the very first thing I want you to do is just connect with your breath. Notice if you're breathing shallow or deeply. And then we're going to activate the breath. In the CD, I work with a complete breath. So I want you to breathe as best you can through your nostrils. And I want you to take some very deep breaths from the very base of the bottom of your belly, widening the breath through your rib cage and then all the way up to your chest and to your throat. Pause there for a moment and then release the breath the same way. You may not feel it as intensely to the very bottom of your belly, and then pause there. And I want you to do that now 4 to 5 times. Just beginning to activate the breath and connect to that. Deeply breathing in, slowly, wide, without judgment. Remember, your VOJ is under the table, and you will leave it there. And I don't care how many times mentally you need to walk your VOJ there. Replace it with your VOJ. Breathing deeply. One more deep, wide, slow breath. Now after this round, just relax your breath. Just notice the rhythm of your breath. For every movement for the mind session, your in-breath, your out-breath, that part of you that no matter what has happened in this lifetime to you, you're always okay. It's a part of you that remembers your dreams. A part of you that no matter what has happened, always is the knower. The K-N-O-W-E-R, that knows that you're all right. And then locate that physically. You might locate it in your solar plexus. You might locate it in the soles of your feet. Then we're going to do one more awareness. We're going to learn appropriate boundaries. All of us have experienced people that have no boundaries. They're completely invasive. They don't even know you, and they immediately are constantly touching you. And then there are other people that you have been around, and no matter how close they're supposed to be in your life, energetically it feels like they have armors, brick walls between you and them and anyone. So we're going to learn appropriate boundaries right here, right now. I want you to experience your skin. Your skin against the air with your eyes closed. And your skin on the chair that you're sitting, or if you were lying down on the floor. And any place that you cannot feel against the air or the object you're sitting or lying on, I want you to take your hands and feel the skin so that you can feel that physical boundary. And go ahead and do that now. Everyone has their eyes closed, so this is safe. This is a place that you can explore and just connect with your physical boundaries so that you can feel the air against your skin and the material object against your skin. Then I want you mentally to go inside your skin and see if the space inside your skin is constricted. And I want you to make mentally that place inside your skin as wide, as safe, as spacious as you desire. These are your inner boundaries. No one can invade your inner boundaries. This is a place you can house your dreams, your memories, your hopes, your wishes, your intentions, your goals. No one can ever go there without your permission, and no one can go there with your permission. It's your sacred inner boundary, and create that now for yourself. Some people love to share every aspect, so you can make this as wide as you'd like. Some people love a lot of privacy, so you can make it as private as you like. So connect now to your inner boundaries and to your outer boundaries. Keep breathing. Keep working with your VOJ. So what I'm going to have you do in a long session, what we would do now is learn the vocabulary of movement. We would learn about low, middle, I can't even say the word, and high levels. We would learn 2 flows of movement. So we would begin to move every part of the body in isolated movements. So we're going to do that in a moment, just for a moment to feel that. So I want you, with your eyes closed, to just begin to feel your feet and to begin to move your feet and just notice all the aspects of feet. How many are you given? And then begin to move and feel your legs and your knees. And if those were the only parts of your body to express, what would they say in the world? There have been several movies that have depicted real people who only had one. In 1989, the Academy Award was My Left Foot. And this gentleman could only communicate by holding a paintbrush in his left foot. And then there was the butterfly and the bell jar, and all he could do was blink. So I want you to just begin moving every part of your body, first in isolation, just right there in the chair or where you're lying, with deliciousness. How they communicate. There's no right or wrong way to move. You can move fast, you can move slow, you can move continuous or interrupted, like with pauses, sentences, commas. So just get some movement going. And breathing, and just work with fast and slow, big and small. And just take a few moments to experience that. Then I want you to imagine something that you would love to create in the next year. And I want you right there where you are to begin to move. It might be angular movement, it might be rounded, it might be free, it might be big or small, even or uneven, and just incorporate that into some of your movements right here and now. Just take a moment just to pull that in, to not work it with your mind at all. It might be as minute as the fingers doing something. And just let those thoughts, those feelings, just be translated right out through the arms. And then just notice anything that needs to be released. It might be some kind of staccato or interrupted motion before you get into the fluidity of your travel, of your desire. And then just gently, right here, right now, just bring that in to your motion. This goal, this intention, right into your body. Just feel it change. Might be leaning to the right, might be leaning to the left. Just bring it in. Keep moving. And then let it just become a pulsation. Just feel it energetically. Let it become quiet and let it just pulse right there with you inside. Physically, mentally, emotionally, and connect it to your entire self. Feeling very grounded in your feet and your legs and your solar plexus now. Take a moment to connect back to your breath. And just notice after 5 minutes, connect back to the physical body. How are you feeling? How does the physical body feel? Without judgment. And then connect to your emotional body. Has the range of your emotional palette expanded? And then connect to the mental body. Notice if your thoughts have shifted, quality and the quantity of your thoughts. And then connect to the witness again. Located physically. And then feel your boundaries. Connect to your physical boundaries and your inner boundaries. And feeling completely grounded in the body, gently let your eyes reopen. just going to take a few moments. So you can imagine in a regular class, we would be moving all over the room. We would be working in every way, and you would have discovered a vocabulary that would have allowed you to range movement to express everything you could imagine. But in this 5 minutes, how do you feel now? What was your experience? Just sitting in a chair doing this much, not even a microwaved portion of the session, but microscopic microwave version. What was your experience? How do you feel now? What did you notice?
I felt a lot of movement, the music, just the dance, the sway, the different places that I felt power and things like that.
Wow. So even though you were in your chair, you were able to embody that expression. Were you able to even look in 2 minutes of a goal and feel it different in your body?
I don't know.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Because it can happen without you knowing it. We always think that if we know intellectually, then it's ours. Not necessarily. That's the great mystery and the magic. What else? In this very short moment.
Just calmness.
You feel calm.
Definitely centering.
Great.
And
Excellent.
I did feel the goal coming in.
Wow. And that was 5 minutes. Anything else?
Pretty relaxing.
Relaxing. So you can imagine if you're moving all over the room, what you would feel. And you can do it in the privacy of your own safety. It's not about others watching you. It's about you expressing that and then finding that intention that you could work with in any area of your life. What is also part of the session is we do all the nonverbal, and then there's always journaling or debriefing in some way. Some people draw and paint their experience, so it becomes a way of, again, very much integrating the right and the left brain. The whole process is that experience of integration. Were you able to locate your boundaries? Inner and outer. So that would take more practice. But everybody's aware of the importance of boundaries, yes. Were you able to locate the witness within?
I did do that as well, I think.
It's practice. Again, it's like anything else, it becomes a new language. Does anybody have any questions? And I have all kinds of resources for you. Questions, comments?
Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Like you were talking about the one with fibromyalgia, when you have just whether it's an acute pain or a chronic pain, how do you incorporate releasing that? And you're saying how she was finding her joy with taking on things. Do you do the releasing of the negative that you want to rid yourself of before you do the other?
I've worked with another woman over a period of about two years, and she also was, a chiropractor had sent her to me because he could not help her, and she was diagnosed also with fibromyalgia, which we all know is just a level of pain, and physical pain, very, very acute. And then it turns into chronic pain, and it's at the muscle level, at the ligamental level, at the nerve level. And what I found with her is that she had taken on tremendous responsibility. I also worked with a couple of other patients and clients that had chronic pain, and they had always been over-responsible. So what we tended to do is I look at people's history. So they talk, there's some talk, so they talk about their history, and then we move into the experience beyond the mind of the pain, of the memories, of any of the situation. And then there becomes an aha moment. And as they are able to express the pain in a very real, physical way, then we begin to replace it with other realities that then become theirs. This woman woman who worked with me for a couple of years absolutely changed her reality. I have worked with people who had chronic back pain, were on about 25 meds, and we got them off of most of their meds. For some people, like this one woman I have talked about, hers was instantaneous. For most of us, it's a process. But yes, that's what we would do. And every person's experience is unique. And I think that is another very important message of this, is that we all are snowflakes. So how one person would use this technology, this methodology, would be very different. And yet it connects us all in that it is time for us to use the right brain and the left brain. It is time for us to access our bodies again and utilize the great creative wisdom that lies within us. But we will each do it uniquely, and this work, as I said, can be used with any population, in any kind of group, as individuals as well. It's very important.
So a lot of times what's manifesting as physical pain oftentimes is an emotional or
it's all connected, and we
mental
just,
pain.
without judgment, we just need, it's really ours to explore. And it is so important, I think, at this time. So important. So I want to thank you, and please stay. We're going to stop the recording, but I want to thank you so much for trusting me, for being here, and for really investing in yourself in a new way. And I've got all kinds of resources for you. Thank you.
Really related to your area, and I had trouble finding anything that I thought was any good. But so let's as I thought about my own knowledge of theater and the possibilities, let me give you some things to work off of. A statement about why you're here could incorporate that you want to focus on particular kinds of audiences, okay? Or particular types of work that you plan, hope to create, hope to do, okay? So it seems like we're pretty broad so far in terms of statements about possibilities on audiences and the kind of work you might hope to do. If I were going to put this in corporate terms, I'm going to go ahead and throw that model out there for you just because it might help you to think through your own situation. I know, having come out of the Chicago theater market, literally there's some theaters that have a goal of just being really affordable and getting work out there that people can enjoy, that everybody can enjoy. So that when you talk about mission and strategy in corporate, there's three possibilities in terms of your strategy, in the world. One is that you're going to be like the low-cost provider, okay? Which, I've seen it in theater too. The goal is make it accessible and price it so that everybody can come, kind of thing. That's really the mission, I think, of a lot of the hot techs. They have price day performance in different cities, and I was thinking we really need one of those here. Somebody said they used to have one, and I don't know. Anyway, another would be what they call differentiated products. So if you guys came up with a kind of theater that's not being done here, okay, you did kinds of work that aren't done by other theater companies here, okay, or just your whole focus of your mission might be just to create new works or perform existing works that put things together in new ways, as what Shashi was saying, and I kind of heard that theme echoed around the room, that your mission is to kind of present new work or existing work that is arranged somehow in a different way that causes, I'm not using the right words, I'm sorry. So it's, low cost, a differentiated kind of, a differentiated product in the sense of performing arts could have a lot of different elements to it, right? It could have to do with the kind of company that you create, a different kind of company that exists here, the kinds of work you do, the kinds of production values you bring, okay? So I think all those are possibilities, and then the other one, you can actually focus around a target market, okay? And be the provider that's either really serving a target audience in a unique way, or is just really covering a market thoroughly in a way that nobody else is really thoroughly. So really thoroughly covering the school age market, or really thoroughly covering the seniors. So far, I don't see a lot that leads me down one of these paths in terms of, right now you do seem like you're awfully broad. So one question that might be helpful, let's just read through the other questions and jump all the way to the third homework question that I gave to Shashi. So what is your vision about how you're gonna live out this purpose? That might lead you to honestly, it's easier in business. I don't know that there's gonna be a difference between mission and vision for you guys, okay? Just creating a statement of what you're trying to do. I do think that the market is so tight for grants and stuff. If you hope to get money outside of, and there's enough entertainment alternatives, not here in Boulder so much. I mean, I think that's an advantage. But in any case, I just know the whole arts world is competitive enough that if you're going out for money and you're going out to try to persuade people, over time, you're probably working more of your networks now. But as you grow, you're obviously going to be doing more advertising and less direct selling, and a lot more using the media to communicate for you. So you're going to want to have a really clear statement of, here's why you're going to want to come see us, okay? You're going to communicate with an ad or in a calendar item. You're going to be trying to attract the attention of different people that you want to have come see the work, okay? So,
But the mission doesn't reach them directly, does it?
Indirectly by virtue of content of advertising.
Defines who you are. We were at the meeting of the museum board the other night, and somebody said something, I don't remember who it was, that I thought was really interesting, and that this fact that we're the theater company of the Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art. So it's contemporary theater, like I said, probably won't see you won't care. So I mean, I think for me that's a place to start.
Yeah.
well,
Contemporary.
that's exactly what I was going to go to,
Second one.
because my third question was what synergies exist and what kind of relationship do you see yourselves having with the museum? Because I see that as a real potential differentiator. And Shashi and I talked about this a little bit, that I think that this is something that we could brainstorm a little bit now and talk through further. The theater is, the museum is about contemporary art, and so maybe from all the different things I heard you talking about, it's even more than theater. It's not performance art, but it's contemporary theater and art. It is contemporary theater and performing art. Or I don't want to confuse.
You can't say performing arts anymore because now that's a whole own,
Mhm.
yeah,
Right.
which is annoying.
And
Contemporary
actually,
theater and performance, or something like that.
I mean, I know that for our first season we were contemporary, but we're not always gonna be necessarily at the museum. And do we, just because they're the Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art and we're in residence there, does that mean that we're contemporary
Well,
necessarily?
but it seems like that's where I'm interested, like even just in that little exchange that when Steve said, I wanna play King Lear, but we probably won't be doing Shakespeare, and then I said, but we could do a different version of King Lear, like we could do our own version of King Lear. Like I think there is an element to this company already that is about doing things that are relevant to today. Like so even just giving you the book on J.D. Salinger and how can we make a story that he wrote relevant to now.
We don't do the
Yeah.
classics as far as I know.
We don't wanna do
No,
that.
and we've already
Or
said
we
we
wanna
want to
do the
do,
classics in a
we want
different
to do,
way, Liz
we want to
Estrada,
do new
Liz
plays.
Estrada.
Well, even Liz Estrada, it's rewritten.
Yeah.
But if we want to do new plays that haven't been seen, at least regional premieres. So maybe it'll be something that some other regional companies have put on, but nobody has seen locally. And so that's going to be something new.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's that thing?
Yeah.
I wrote a little mission statement with what little I know about mission statements. I said to produce quality, relevant theater, and this is based on what we've all talked about in the past,
that reaches a multi-generational audience and sold-out houses. I just threw that one in on the end. Why not?
Yeah, I know.
Why not have that?
It's way too general.
Is
It's
it-
too
is it
general.
too general?
Anywhere
What I
with
love
that.
about what you're forcing us to do is to be more
Yeah.
detailed, because we do have to.
It's
Yeah.
not
So
that-
resistant, like, you
But we
know.
I
do,
wasn't
it's
just-
too-
No, I hear ya.
we can live in philosophies
Well, no,
as
that's
long
why I was
as
asking about the clarification on what is the mission, because I thought, in theory, the mission was broad, and it was the vision that hones it down into the specifics of how you're gonna do it.
The thing is, you need to figure out how you, I mean, if you'll forgive my saying
How
this,
you're
you
gonna
guys have
sell it.
to figure out how you're gonna compete.
Yeah.
And so,
With whom?
Well, hey,
with,
Nomad,
with
possibly,
not
I mean,
only, not only other theaters, which would be
Nomad,
the obvious
Curious,
way to go,
Yeah.
Bunkport,
but other entertainment
Just
options,
any-
well,
other
and-
entertainment
TV,
options,
movies,
TV,
yeah,
videos,
sure.
the
Which
home
is-
theater,
and if
Sheila
we,
is a
if
home
we
theater.
also, but if we also
She was inviting
want-
people to the other day, I'm like,
if we wanna
You know,
stand
it's
out
nice.
as a theater company also, and I'm saying I'm resistant, just like that's my own thing, I'm not like, I don't wanna do it, but more just like I find myself going, oh, that sounds good, like, oh, I don't wanna have to say what audience we're gonna have, and so I appreciate that you're forcing us to do this, cause
I
it's hard.
just don't, you know, whether or not you like it, if you can
Yeah.
find some things that you can
No,
all
I
agree
agree.
on, to get some initial grants, and then you decide to change later, I don't care. But
Right.
I'm here to just be the, you know,
Right.
the
Well, and
messenger
if
you wanna
we-
kill,
If we
because-
wanna, no, but it's also like if we wanna stand out as a theater company, like, you know, you've been reading that book of nonprofit theater companies, and like if we wanna stand out as a local theater company like Steppenwolf or some of these other wonderful companies all over the United States, then we do have to do it, you know, we do have to be more.
And it's gonna make us go in a direction that will make us stronger and more specific. Because
Yeah.
it's, otherwise we're kind of floating about
Yeah.
into space.
so,
But I think there was something that I was thinking of that was slightly more specific. I'm just thinking about what we are competing with actually, because I know that, you know, there's small companies starting, although we haven't seen them much. You know, they come up and go, and there's no reason why they can't be making it in this town. And the more attention we bring to theater, the more it's going to bring attention to theater. Fringe Festival being here is going to bring more attention to theater. And so what we're looking at is the beginning of the theater time here, which is what we've been dreaming of for a while. And if we're going to lead it up, we need to have a real focused going, because when then the MFA students come out, they're all thinking about forming theater companies and you know all this stuff. So we actually do have a little bit of competition, and I think what we have is that we have a season. None of, yeah, we have a
That's-
theater,
yeah.
and we have a season, and we're thinking about doing kids theater, educational summer camps,
that's
and
great,
and we're gonna have a full season also. And so really what we have is we have a house of theater, you know, where people are doing their individual shows. We're kind of on the block, you know, we have our spot. And so
House of Theater instead of House of Blues.
yeah, exactly.
Well, okay, but I
Sure,
still think, you know, there's a zillion other people offering educational
Yep.
programs to kids, so I don't think it's enough to say, well, we have a building and we have a bunch of people that have more
Sure.
experience than a lot of these other guys.
Right.
It's not gonna, I mean, I'm a
So,
parent of a 10-year-old, and that's not gonna sell me,
Mhm.
Right.
you know,
And I think,
so.
and then there's
Sorry.
Rocky School for Kids Theater, and but what we and what we're totally striving to do is to do it entirely professional company where
better.
everyone gets paid.
So
That's-
what about, sorry, I just thought of something, is that all right? I'm just thinking of what you just said
Mhm.
about the educational component, and let's go back to some of the things that we were talking about earlier, which is this idea of bringing community together. You talked about communal, socially relevant. I mean, that's, I think, where some of our stuff is coming from, and I think some of our educational efforts will be around that. Not like, oh, send your kid to this entertaining theater camp, or send your kid somewhere to be a theater, you know, like a little, to be in a play, but it's more like some of the work that I've experienced with you has been very ensemble building, and so
Yeah.
that's an incredible learning experience for young people that we can, what can we pull from that we can, that would separate us out, that it's not, again, the work that I did in New York wasn't like how to be funny on stage, it was really, the improvisation was like a really ensemble building, community sort sort of experience that's really different than a lot of than going to what's the place in Denver, the cow place, Bovine, you know, where you're just learning how to, you know, get the audience to laugh. So that's where I think some of our need is.
I latched onto that a little bit because for a couple of reasons. One is I got a Quaker meeting, okay, and I have some experience with consensus decision making, which is a little bit different than collective, but it sounds like a collective is sort of trying to use consensus. And one of the pieces of good news I want to tell you is the Quakers in most of the, you know, issues of our times, like slavery, women voting, you know, consensus of when you're learning how to do it, because we're brought up in this competitive society,
Sure.
it seems really cumbersome, but the Quakers are usually about 100 years ahead of everybody else in terms of the conclusions and getting to the right answer. So I think consensus is really powerful. I think, so that is an idea I latched onto as I was listening to you guys. If you had a way of incorporating in the educational programming, there are a couple things that is it okay if I start telling you some of the things that I'm hooking onto?
Yes.
Also
Yeah,
just
Sure,
starting
it's good for us.
for
Because
the
I think that's
conversation.
huge. I think that's what we have to offer.
I think that if you really emphasize that contemporary theater art, and then we've got to come up with I think you need to emphasize the relationship with the museum. That's got to be one component of your mission that makes you different. So that it's contemporary theater art. Okay, the museum does contemporary visual art, and you're kind of a sister organization that does contemporary theater art. If you even just write about it that way right off the bat, that's going to differentiate you from a million other people out there. And I'd love to see you come up with a project somehow in this planning process, or two, where you're actually